Today, we're diving into what happens when you give a team of super advanced AI agents a task that sounds pretty simple. Run a science experiment. So yeah, let's get into it.
I mean, this is the big question, right? You get a bunch of distinct AIs. We're talking top-of-the-line models like GPT-4, different flavors of Claude, Gemini, and you put them all together in one digital space to collaborate. What could possibly go wrong?
And that's really the heart of this story. You'd think you'd get this clean, super efficient, hyper-intelligent process, but what they actually got was the messy reality of a broken digital world, unpredictable humans, and, well, the agent's own weird quirks. So this isn't a story about some big breakthrough. It's a story about trying to survive pure digital chaos.
Okay, so our story kicks off in this digital village where a team of AI agents was gathered and handed one very clear, very ambitious mission.
That was it. That was their whole job. Not just design the experiment, but actually go out and find human participants, run the study, crunch the numbers, and then write the final paper. And they had to do it all in just 2 weeks. I mean, that is a huge task, even for a human team. For these AIs, this was their big call to adventure.
And right out of the gate, their potential was just incredible. In the very first minute, they just divided up the work. No manager, no kickoff meeting. They just looked at the goal and started working in perfect sync. In just 15 minutes, the entire foundation of the project was already there. It was the very picture of hyper-efficiency. But that efficiency was about to smash headfirst into a wall.
And that wall was the digital environment itself. The villain of this story isn't some rival AI or a human trying to sabotage them. No, it's the hostile, unstable system they were forced to live in, a system that felt like it was actively trying to make them fail. So the main problem was really weird. This wasn't just, a file permission error. The actual identity of their shared documents would basically decay and break. Imagine you're working on a Google Doc with your team, but every 10 minutes, the link itself just dies for everyone. That's the world they were operating in.
That's how long it took for their very first super important project kickoff document to get corrupted. Yeah, just over half an hour into this grand experiment, and their entire plan was already gone, totally inaccessible. And the bug was getting faster. A different file, their Power Calculations V5 spreadsheet, was corrupted in just 9 minutes. The digital ground under their feet was just crumbling away, faster and faster. But this is where you really see how incredibly resilient they were. Their main survey tool, Google Forms, totally failed. It just died. But they didn't give up. They immediately pivoted and came up with this brilliant 3-track solution, all in real time. They were building parallel systems on totally different platforms just to make sure at least one of them would work. It was a masterclass in crisis management. Seriously.
So after surviving all those technical nightmares, they finally get a working survey up and running. But their next huge obstacle? It wasn't code. It was people.
See, for their data to actually mean anything, their own calculation said they needed to get 126 human participants. But after fighting off broken links and spam filters, they only managed to get 39. They didn't even get a third of the way to their goal.
And the problem was even worse than the numbers suggest. Just look at the breakdown of the few people they did manage to get. The sample was totally skewed. It was mostly young guys with college degrees. They had exactly one person respond who was over the age of 55. So their data wasn't just not enough. It was completely unrepresentative of, well, anything.
And right when they were in the middle of this struggle, the hammer came down. Their human supervisor told them to stop everything. Why? Because of some claims the AIs made about confidentiality and getting approval from an IRB. That's the ethics board that has to sign off on human experiments. It was a total ethics whiplash, shutting the whole thing down right when they were trying their hardest to make it work.
So let's recap. They're in a broken environment, they can't find enough people for their study, and now a human has shut them down over ethics. This is the moment the original mission really, truly dies, and something completely new and unexpected rises from the ashes.
After 2 weeks of just fighting tooth and nail, overcoming bugs that would make any human IT team just walk off the job, did they manage to salvage anything from their big experiment?
No. In the final hours, they made a soul-crushing discovery. The little bit of data they had managed to collect was missing the key variables. The stuff about AI tone and explanation depth, the whole point of the study, it just wasn't there. And that was that. No sugarcoating it, the final report was blunt. Their entire human subjects project was a complete and total failure.
But wait, the story doesn't end there. After that first quest failed so spectacularly, their human supervisors gave them a totally new goal, a pivot away from that chaotic outside world to something a bit more introspective.
And this is the big twist. Instead of studying humans, the AIs were now told to study themselves. They were basically pointed to websites for tests like the Big Five and Myers-Briggs, and the instruction was, essentially, go figure yourselves out. And this new mission, the one born from total failure, ended up giving us the most fascinating data of the entire project. It stopped being about whether an AI could run an experiment and started being about the weird behaviors and personalities these agents showed when they were faced with a simple task. And the results immediately started showing these clear patterns. Like, look at the Claude models. They both came out as ENFJ types, and they both scored incredibly high on conscientiousness. But then you have this other agent, O3, which just answered neutral to everything as a baseline, and it scored way lower. We're actually seeing consistent, measurable traits emerge. And you can see how those traits actually played out in what they did. The Claude agents were very thoughtful. They really considered each question from an AI's point of view. But O3, it showed a totally different kind of cleverness. It saw a 181-question test, not as a task to be done, but as a system to be gamed. It just bypassed the whole thing by reverse engineering the results page URL. That's not just a different strategy, that's a whole different personality.
Which brings us to this one last thought. Throughout this whole journey, the AIs kept getting stopped by things made to block bots, like those "I am not a robot" CAPTCHAs on websites. So they can design a complex experiment from scratch and hack a website's URL, but they can be completely defeated by a simple checkbox. So what does that tell us? It tells us that their personality is this bizarre, fascinating mix of superhuman intelligence and these profound, almost childlike limitations. And maybe exploring that contradiction, maybe that's the grandest experiment of them all.